Following the death of Joshua, a pivotal leader, the nation of Israel found itself at a critical juncture. The strong, unified leadership that had guided them through the conquest of Canaan was now absent. This left the 12 tribes scattered across the land, each largely independent. Without a central authority, the tribes failed to complete the divine mandate. They did not fully conquer the remaining Canaanite enemies within their borders. This incomplete obedience left pockets of pagan influence throughout the land. Gradually, the Israelites began to succumb to the allure of the surrounding pagan cultures. They adopted foreign gods and practices, turning away from the covenant God had established with them. This period initiated a profound and troubling, dark cycle of spiritual and moral decline. It was a time marked by a lack of consistent leadership and a growing spiritual apathy. The foundations laid by Moses and Joshua began to erode, leading to widespread instability. A distinct pattern emerged during this era, a recurring cycle of sin and divine intervention. Time and again, Israel would turn away from God, engaging in idolatry and disobedience. This spiritual rebellion provoked God's righteous wrath. As a consequence, God would allow their enemies to oppress them. The Israelites would suffer under the yoke of foreign powers, experiencing hardship and loss. In their desperation and suffering, the people would eventually cry out to God for help. God, in His boundless mercy and faithfulness to His covenant, would respond. He would raise up charismatic leaders known as judges. These individuals were not kings, but rather military and spiritual deliverers. They were empowered by the Spirit of God for specific tasks. These judges would lead Israel in battle, delivering them from their oppressors. However, once the immediate threat was gone, the cycle often repeated itself. The people would forget God's deliverance and revert to their sinful ways. This pattern underscores the deep spiritual challenges of the age. The early judges provided powerful demonstrations of God's faithfulness, even amidst Israel's failings. Othniel, the first judge, led Israel to victory through acts of courage and divine empowerment. He brought 40 years of peace to the land. Ehud, a left-handed Benjamite, delivered Israel from Moabite oppression. He famously assassinated the obese Moabite king, Eglon, leading Israel to freedom. His cunning act secured 80 years of peace. Deborah, a remarkable prophetess, served as a spiritual and judicial leader. She guided Barak, the military commander, in battle against the Canaanite general Sisera. Her wisdom and faith were instrumental in their success. Barak, though initially hesitant, led the Israelite army to a decisive victory. He defeated Sisera's formidable forces, including their iron chariots. This triumph was a testament to God's power working through His chosen leaders. The final blow to Sisera was delivered by Jael, a Kenite woman. She cunningly lured Sisera into her tent and then killed him with a tent peg while he slept. This unexpected act fulfilled Deborah's prophecy. Despite these early successes and periods of peace, the people's commitment to God was often short-lived. They would soon return to their sinful practices, setting the stage for the next phase of the cycle. As the era progressed, the judges themselves became increasingly flawed, leading to more tragic outcomes. Gideon, a pivotal figure, initially appeared as a fearful and reluctant hero. He doubted God's call, seeking multiple signs. Yet God empowered him, calling him a mighty warrior. Gideon, with divine guidance, achieved a stunning victory over the Midianites. He famously used only 300 men, armed with trumpets and torches, to rout a vast army. This miraculous deliverance brought 40 years of peace. However, Gideon's legacy was tragically marred after his death. He created an ephod from the spoils of war, which became an object of idolatry within his own household. This act led Israel back into spiritual apostasy. Jephthah, another significant judge, was an outcast from his family. He was called upon by the elders of Gilead to deliver Israel from the Ammonites. He rose to the occasion, leading Israel to victory. His triumph, however, was tragically stained by a rash and ill-conceived vow. Before the battle, Jephthah promised to sacrifice the first thing that came out of his house to meet him upon his return. This vow led to the devastating sacrifice of his only daughter. Jephthah's story highlights the moral decline and the tragic consequences of human folly. It underscores the desperate spiritual state of Israel during this period. Samson stands out as perhaps the most iconic and complex of all the judges. He was gifted with superhuman strength from birth, set apart as a Nazirite. His life was meant to be a powerful instrument against the Philistines. He terrorized the Philistines with incredible feats of strength. He tore a lion apart with his bare hands and carried away the city gates of Gaza. His exploits were legendary, striking fear into Israel's oppressors. Despite his extraordinary physical power, Samson possessed significant character flaws. He was impulsive, driven by personal desires, and had a profound weakness for women. His pride and lack of self-control were his undoing. These flaws ultimately led to his betrayal by Delilah, a Philistine woman. She discovered the secret of his strength, leading to his capture and blinding. Samson, once mighty, was reduced to grinding grain in a Philistine prison. In his final act, Samson was brought to the Philistine temple for their amusement. He prayed to God for one last surge of strength. With renewed power, he pushed down the temple pillars. In his death, Samson brought down the entire structure, killing himself and thousands of Philistines. He killed more enemies in his death than he had throughout his entire life, a tragic and powerful end. The final chapters of Judges paint a bleak and disturbing picture of Israel's moral decay. They depict a society where idolatry, corruption, and horrific violence reigned unchecked. These narratives illustrate the depths to which the nation had fallen. The recurring phrase, "In those days there was no king in Israel, everyone did what was right in his own eyes," encapsulates the era's chaos. This lack of central authority and moral compass led to widespread anarchy. Individuals and tribes acted according to their own desires, often with devastating consequences. The Book of Judges serves as a profound warning about abandoning God and His covenant. It vividly illustrates the destructive path of spiritual compromise and moral relativism. Yet, amidst the darkness, it also highlights God's enduring mercy and faithfulness. Despite Israel's repeated failures, God consistently raised up deliverers. The book ultimately expresses a deep longing for a true and righteous king. It foreshadows the need for a leader who would guide Israel according to God's will, bringing true peace and order.